What do a reality TV diva, a Power Rangers actor, and a former WWE icon have in common? They're all locked up, and their stories are more disturbing than anything Hollywood could script. From shocking murder plots to deadly DUIs, these Hollywood scandals reveal the chilling truth behind the fame. Can you guess which celebrity is serving over 100 years? Stay tuned. The answers will leave you speechless. Skylar DeLeon. Skylar DeLeon's saga stands out as one of the most astonishing tales in recent Hollywood scandals, a twisted journey from childhood performer to condemned inmate, complete with a shocking twist on death row. Born John Julius Jacobson Jr., Skylar tasted early fame in commercials and even scored a bit part on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. She joined the Marines at 20, but was discharged for going AWOL. Later, posing as a successful real estate investor, she met Tom and Jackie Hawkes, a warm-hearted couple, eager to sell their yacht, the Well-Deserved, for $440,000 so they could finally settle near their grandchildren. On November 15, 2004, Skylar, her pregnant wife, and 2 associates joined the Hawks for what was billed as a routine sea trial. By nightfall, the yacht returned alone, its owners vanished without explanation. Alarmed, the Hawks family pushed investigators to act. Skylar calmly insisted she'd lawfully purchased the yacht and even presented forged paperwork. The case seemed destined for deadlock until March 2005, when one accomplice fled to Mexico only to return under pressure and confess everything. His testimony detailed how Skylar and her crew forced the couple to sign over the yacht and then cast them overboard in a fatal act. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Skylar's lawyer abandoned any real defense, focusing solely on avoiding a death sentence. In October 2007, Skylar's wife was convicted on 2 counts of deadly attack and handed 2 life terms without parole. Another associate received a death sentence soon after. In April 2009, Skylar herself was condemned for her role in the Hawks' deaths and a separate fatal incident, and has been cooling her heels on death row at San Quentin ever since. The story took another startling turn in 2019 when Skylar legally changed her gender to female while incarcerated. California's correction system approved her petition for gender affirmation and transferred her to a women's facility. Skylar later claimed she orchestrated the yacht plot to fund her transition, a justification that ignited fierce debate over whether someone convicted of such brutal crimes should qualify for state-supported medical care. Critics decried the move as twisted, while advocates argued that basic dignity extends to all inmates, no matter their past. Today, Skylar DeLeon remains one of the rare women on death row in the United States, her life a stark reminder of betrayal, deceit, and unforeseen consequences. And if you think her tale is unsettling, stay tuned. Up next, we'll expose how another high-profile figure narrowly escaped a prison sentence and rocked the world of red carpet fashion. Shannon Richardson. Shannon Richardson's name may not ring a bell for most, but if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, you might remember her brief appearance as an extra. Despite her fleeting fame, Shannon's dark fascination with death and suffering would soon overshadow her acting career in a way no one could have predicted. In the midst of a bitter divorce from her 3rd husband, Shannon took things to a chilling extreme. Rather than resorting to petty revenge like spiking his food, she plotted a much darker scheme, framing him for sending threatening letters laced with deadly substances to high-profile figures. The letters were sent to former President Barack Obama, New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and a well-known non-profit leader. The plan worked initially, and her husband was arrested and interrogated, but he vehemently denied the charges. His defense wasn't enough to stop the police from turning their focus to Shannon. As the investigation unfolded, her story fell apart. She initially claimed that her husband had forced her to send the letters, but the truth eventually came out. In June 2013, Shannon was indicted. By November of the same year, she struck a plea deal to avoid more serious charges, but the consequences were still severe. In 2014, she was convicted and sentenced to 18 years in prison, fined $67,200, and ordered to serve 5 years of supervised release. Her projected release date is set for November 2028, which, if anything, might align with the world she briefly portrayed on the set of The Walking Dead. It's a strange, almost fitting twist, her experiences in the realm of Hollywood gossip now being mirrored in a real-life situation, that could feel like the beginning of a zombie apocalypse. Before you go, tell us, what country are you watching from? We're diving into scandals that shocked the world, and we'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from. Drop your country in the comments below and let's see how far this story has traveled. Zara Fythian. In 2015, Zara Fythian, alongside her husband, faced conviction for their involvement in disturbing acts that shocked the public. They were found guilty of committing crimes against underage victims, with the offences dating back to between 2005 and 2008. The couple faced multiple charges, 14 counts in total, of misconduct that left a trail of devastation. The court held them accountable, with Zara's husband particularly criticised for his manipulative role in the abuse. Despite Zara being 37 at the time of her conviction, and seemingly a grown woman who should have known right from wrong, the trial judge pointed to her emotional dependence on her husband as a significant factor in her actions. Zara herself had consistently denied the allegations, calling them ridiculous when initially confronted by law enforcement, maintaining her innocence even as the overwhelming evidence mounted against her. The victim impact statements were heart-wrenching. One survivor described how she had lost her innocence and struggled to form meaningful relationships, while another victim shared how the news of the abuse nearly shattered her mother's spirit. Once a stuntwoman and actress, Zara didn't show remorse in the courtroom, instead waving to her supporters who cheered her on during her sentencing. Despite the gravity of the case, her behavior left many wondering how this shocking event could unfold in the world of Hollywood gossip. Now incarcerated, Zara has thrown herself into prison life, aiming to maintain the cleanliness of Foston Hall Prison in Derby. She's even taken an industrial cleaning course, working to turn her time behind bars into a way to contribute. By the end of her sentence, she may well become the most skilled cleaner in the British prison system. Amy Locane. On the night of June 27, 2010, Amy Locane's life took a tragic turn that would haunt her forever. After a night of heavy drinking, she was speeding home, driving nearly twice the legal speed limit. In a moment of catastrophic recklessness, she crashed into another car that was attempting to turn into a driveway. The collision sent Amy flying into a drainage ditch, though she escaped with only minor injuries. However, the crash killed the passenger of the other car and left the driver severely injured, pushing them dangerously close to death. When emergency responders arrived at the scene, they found Amy intoxicated and giggling, seemingly unaware of the devastation she had just caused. She appeared oblivious to the consequences of her actions, and even more unaware of how it would change the lives of the victim's family. In the aftermath, Amy was charged with vehicular assault and aggravated manslaughter. In December 2010, she was formally indicted, and by November 2012, a jury convicted her of assault by auto and vehicular homicide. She was sentenced to just 3 years behind bars, a verdict that left the victim's family devastated. They vowed to continue fighting for justice in court. After serving her sentence, Amy was released on parole in 2015, only to face an unexpected twist. She was served with divorce papers shortly afterward, but that was just the beginning of a lengthy legal saga. In 2016, an appeals court ruled that Amy's sentence had been too lenient. By February 2019, her original 3-year term was extended to 5 years. The drama didn't end there. In September 2020, Amy's sentence was further increased to 8 years, as the courts recognized the severity of her actions. Today, Amy Locane is serving her time, her life forever altered by that tragic night in 2010. What seemed like a fleeting mistake has turned into a long and painful journey, as she continues to pay the price for the lives she changed that evening. On Lil Kim. Kimberly, Lil Kim Jones, was born in 1974 in New York City, the daughter of a U.S. Marine who left the family when she was just 9 years old. Clashing with her mother during her teenage years, Lil Kim dropped out of high school and spent time surviving on the streets and sleeping on friends' couches. During this turbulent period, she met the notorious Big, who became her mentor and launched her into the spotlight as part of his junior mafia collective, a close-knit crew of young Brooklyn rappers. His tragic death in 1997 rocked the group and marked a major turning point in her life. Undeterred, Lil Kim launched her solo career in 1996 with Hardcore, breaking records as one of the highest-charting debut albums by a female rapper. Tracks like Crush on You and No Time solidified her status as a trailblazer. Known for her bold lyrics, fearless style, and high-profile feuds with artists like Eve and Nicki Minaj, she became a fixture in pop culture. Her influence is undeniable, paving the way for a new generation of female rappers from Saweetie to Megan Thee Stallion. She also made notable appearances in films like Zoolander and You Got Served. Despite her success, Lil Kim faced legal trouble. In 2001, after a violent confrontation outside a Manhattan radio station, she lied to a grand jury to protect her associates. Surveillance footage contradicted her testimony, and in 2005 she was convicted of perjury and conspiracy. Though she faced up to 20 years, she served a one-year sentence at a federal detention center in Philadelphia. In 2014, Lil Kim became a mother, giving birth to a daughter named Royal Reign. The child's father is rapper Mr. Papers, not the notorious Big, as is sometimes wrongly assumed. Her life story, marked by triumphs, controversies, and comebacks, remains one of the most compelling narratives in hip-hop history. From red carpet fashion to courtroom drama, what really happened to Teresa Giudice? If you're still watching, comment 1 inch to let us know you're here till the end. Tammy Lin Sitch. Tammy Lin Sitch, once a WWE star known for her larger-than-life persona, spiraled into a series of scandals that left her in and out of jail for years. In 2012, the former wrestling manager and actor who had once dazzled fans with her presence began making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Over the course of a single month, law enforcement was called on her 5 times. She faced charges such as violating a protective order, disorderly conduct, and even third-degree burglary, which led to a 114-day jail sentence. By May 2013, she was released, but the trouble didn't end there. Though Tammy attempted to calm her behavior, her troubles resurfaced. Between May and June 2015, she was arrested multiple times in Pennsylvania for driving under the influence. She pled guilty to DUI charges, receiving a 90-day sentence in jail, during which she also went through rehab. However, her legal woes weren't over. A probation violation kept her locked up until February 2017. Early the following year, still on probation, Tammy was arrested twice more for DUI offenses. She was even accused of fleeing from an accident caused by her impaired driving. Her refusal to attend court hearings eventually led to another arrest for contempt of court and being a fugitive from justice in February 2018. As if her legal troubles weren't chaotic enough, it was revealed she had been evading the justice system for years. After some back and forth between states, Tammy was released from jail in October 2018, only to face even more charges. In February 2019, a bench warrant was issued for her arrest, and she was sent back to jail later that month, this time in New Jersey. After being transferred to Pennsylvania to face her charges, Tammy spent over a year behind bars, eventually being released in February 2020. But the roller coaster ride continued. In July of the same year, she was arrested again for driving with a suspended license, fleeing from police and violating a restraining order. Her freedom, however, came in June 2021, when a court order granted her release. The events took an even darker turn in 2022. On January 13th, she was arrested in New Jersey for threatening someone with a weapon and making violent threats. After spending a night in jail, she was ordered to check in with authorities. Tammy was facing up to 11 years behind bars for this offense alone. Yet in February of the same year, she was arrested again for drunk driving. In her typical fashion, she faced a slew of charges in New Jersey, but things escalated even further. In March 2022, Tammy's behavior reached a tragic peak. Under the influence of both alcohol and drugs, she caused a fatal crash that took the life of a 75-year-old man. Arrested for DUI and manslaughter, she was initially released on bail but was later deemed too dangerous to be free. In May 2022, she was brought back to jail, facing up to 26 years for this devastating incident. With her lawyer having withdrawn from the case and no money to hire another, Tammy is relying on the public defender's office to represent her. This shocking fall from grace is one of the most jaw-dropping Hollywood scandals in recent memory. From a WWE diva to a woman facing serious jail time, Tammy Lin Sitch's story is a cautionary tale about fame gone wrong. Jennifer Shah. Jennifer Shah was introduced to viewers in 2020 as a cast member on The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, where the spotlight was on the lives and careers of some of Utah's most intriguing women. During a late 2020 interview on Housewives Nightcap, when asked about her profession, Jennifer proudly described herself as a successful businesswoman, saying, "I own 3 different marketing companies, focusing on lead generation, data monetization, and customer acquisition." She went on to compare her role to that of the Wizard of Oz, working behind the scenes to make things happen, like targeting ads that seem to know exactly what you're shopping for. Jennifer boasted about her extensive marketing expertise, explaining how she made money off every click people made online. "I've been blessed to be successful with my marketing background," she said, claiming her investments spanned from fashion and skincare to lash lines and business ventures. However, despite her glamorous portrayal of success, Jennifer's story took a dark turn that shocked fans. In March 2021, Jennifer Shah, along with her longtime assistant Stewart Smith, who also appeared on the show, was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and money laundering. Authorities claimed they ran a nationwide scheme targeting vulnerable senior citizens. The indictment alleged that from 2012, Shah, Smith, and their co-conspirators ran a telemarketing fraud operation, convincing hundreds of victims, many of them elderly, that they were purchasing services for their online businesses. In reality, the supposed business opportunities were nothing more than fraudulent schemes designed to steal money. Prosecutors revealed that Shah and Smith sold lists of leads to other criminals who continued to scam the victims until they had drained every last dollar. U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss summed it up, stating, "The so-called business opportunities pushed on the victims by Shah, Smith, and their co-conspirators were just fraudulent schemes motivated by greed." While Jennifer had presented herself as a successful entrepreneur on RHOS LC, her reality was far from the luxurious life she had portrayed. The wire fraud charge she faced carried a maximum sentence of 30 years, while money laundering could have landed her 20 years behind bars. At first, Shah proclaimed her innocence, blaming her assistant, Stewart Smith, saying she was played by him. However, after months of legal battles, Jennifer ultimately pleaded guilty to the wire fraud charge. In January 2023, as part of a plea bargain, she was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison, marking a dramatic fall from grace for the woman who once flaunted her wealth on Ross LC. Now Jennifer Shah is serving her time behind bars and recently marked her 50th birthday in prison, a stark contrast to the life of glamour she once led. Julie Krisley. In June 2022, Julie and Todd Krisley, stars of Krisley Knows Best, were convicted of serious financial crimes, including tax evasion and obtaining loans under false pretenses. The couple fraudulently acquired over $30 million from banks, which they used to fund a lavish lifestyle instead of making legitimate investments or charitable donations. Their excessive spending and attention-grabbing purchases were all backed by dishonest means, contributing to a public image of wealth that they had carefully cultivated. Their legal troubles began in 2019 when they were indicted on charges of tax evasion, conspiracy, and bank and wire fraud. After a lengthy trial, they were found guilty of all charges. Julie was sentenced to 7 years in prison, while Todd received a 12-year sentence. The couple was reportedly stunned by the outcome and expressed disbelief at the prospect of spending years behind bars. They immediately announced plans to appeal the convictions. The scandal had a significant impact on their reality show, with Krisley Knows Best and its spin-offs being cancelled by the USA Network. Producers, who had been assured by the couple that they were innocent, were reportedly disappointed by the outcome, having been led to believe the situation would resolve and the Krisleys would return to their normal lives. In an unexpected twist, Todd's 77-year-old mother allegedly committed perjury during the sentencing phase of the trial. She reportedly lied on the stand at the couple's request to take some of the blame for their actions. Prosecutors, however, painted Todd and Julie as a walking crime wave, accusing them of being career criminals who lied to banks, evaded taxes, and defrauded vendors for years. After the conviction, Julie attempted to delay her prison sentence by asking the judge for permission to serve time at home until her adopted daughter turned 18, citing concerns about the child's well-being. However, the judge denied her request and Julie began serving her sentence. Meanwhile, Todd and Julie's legal team filed appeals, maintaining their innocence and accusing the government of misleading the jury, claiming that their accountants were to blame for their financial issues. Despite their convictions, the Krisleys continued to maintain their innocence, framing themselves as victims of the justice system. Todd and Julie have stayed active on social media, sharing cryptic posts that reflect their frustration and self-pity over their legal situation. As of 2025, Todd is serving his 12-year sentence at a federal prison in Pensacola, Florida, while Julie is incarcerated at the Federal Medical Center in Lexington, Kentucky, serving her 7-year sentence. Savannah, who has taken on the responsibility of caring for her younger siblings, has publicly supported her parents, despite the ongoing legal battles. The Krisleys remain focused on appealing their sentences, hoping for a different outcome. Teresa Giudice. Teresa Giudice, best known for her role on The Real Housewives of New Jersey, has been a fixture in pop culture for over a decade. The show, which ran for 12 successful seasons, also sparked spin-offs, including Teresa Checks In, documenting her life post-incarceration. Born in May 1972 to Italian immigrants, Teresa's early years were spent twirling a baton, playing the saxophone in high school, and studying fashion at Berkeley College. After working at Macy's, she found her big break when she joined The Real Housewives of New Jersey during its inaugural season. Her rise to fame didn't stop at reality TV stardom. Teresa leveraged her popularity and media presence to co-author a series of successful cookbooks, using her culinary skills to build a brand. In addition to her cookbooks, she wrote a memoir detailing her prison experiences and another, Standing Strong, which was released in October 2017. However, Teresa's story took a dark turn in 2013 when she and her husband were hit with a 39-count indictment. The charges included mail fraud, bank fraud, wire fraud, bankruptcy fraud, and lying on their loan applications. Her husband was also accused of evading income taxes between 2004 and 2008. Despite initially maintaining their innocence, the couple eventually entered a plea deal. In October 2014, Teresa was sentenced to 15 months in prison, though she served less than a year. Her husband received a 41-month sentence, followed by deportation to Italy. The couple was also fined $414,000. The trial judge expressed frustration over their failure to fully cooperate with authorities, which contributed to the lengthy prison sentence for Teresa, who had hoped for probation. During her time in prison, Teresa did not hold back in sharing her grievances. She granted multiple interviews after her release, calling the conditions of the jail hellish. She described her time behind bars as living without hot showers, central heating, or even running water. Teresa vehemently maintained her innocence, claiming that her only crime was signing documents that her ex-husband had pushed her to sign. Despite her legal troubles, she managed to rebuild her career and family life after her release. Teresa Giudice's story is one of fame, scandal, and redemption, as she navigated the challenges of both reality TV fame and the consequences of her legal battles. Allison Mack. Allison Mack, once adored by fans for her role as Chloe Sullivan on Smallville, experienced a shocking fall from grace. In 2006, at the height of her popularity, Mack's life took a darker turn when she became involved with a controversial cult called NXIVM. By 2015, she had risen to a leadership role within the group, overseeing a subsect where she was tasked with recruiting slaves for the cult's founder. Her duties included gathering compromising material on these individuals, securing control over their assets, and even branding them with the founder's initials. The branding ceremony was a chilling affair, taking up to 30 minutes per person and reportedly accompanied by the chant, "Feel the pain, feel the love," as initiates endured the painful ritual. The FBI caught wind of these disturbing practices, and in 2018 they arrested Mack, charging her with sex trafficking and forced labor. Facing a potential 15 years to life in prison, Mack had no superhero to rescue her and decided to strike a plea deal. In exchange for her cooperation, where she testified against the next CVM founder, the man responsible for the operation was sentenced to 120 years in prison. As for Mack, her punishment was far less severe. In June 2021, she was handed a relatively light sentence of 3 years, along with 3 years of probation and a $20,000 fine. Mack served just 2 years of her sentence before being released in July 2023. Her involvement in one of the most shocking Hollywood scandals in recent years left a lasting impact, transforming her from a beloved TV star to a cautionary figure. Was Allison Mack a true villain or just another victim of manipulation? Type yes if you believe she knew exactly what she was doing, or no if you think she was brainwashed. Comment below and tell us where you stand in this controversy. Cheyenne Sha Victoria. Cheyenne Sha Victoria was once hailed as one of Brazil's brightest esports stars, a champion gamer turned influencer with a massive online following. She even won the prestigious Brazil Game Cup Female Award in 2019, dominating the Counter-Strike scene with unmatched skill and swagger. But instead of leveling up her career, Sha took a dark detour into deceit, one that would cost her everything. In a shocking twist, Cheyenne was sentenced to a jaw-dropping 116 years in prison for her role in a massive fraud scheme linked to an online store she helped run from 2013 to 2017. During that period, nearly 120 customers came forward, claiming they had paid for products that never arrived. Their complaints totaled over $10,000 in losses, and the excuses were even more outrageous. Customers were told delivery trucks had crashed and delays were being worked out. But the lies couldn't hold forever. Frustrated victims eventually reported the scam to the Public Ministry of São Paulo, MPSP, prompting an investigation that exposed Sha as a central figure in the fraudulent operation. Despite attempts to deflect blame, authorities tied her directly to the business and its deceptive practices. She was arrested, charged with embezzlement and fraud, and hit with an eye-popping sentence. However, there's a twist. Under Brazilian law, the maximum prison time anyone can serve is 30 years, meaning Sha likely won't see a full 116 behind bars. Still, the sentence sends a strong message: fame is no shield from the law. Sha has since spoken out on social media, claiming it's all a misunderstanding. She insists the store had made over 10,000 legitimate sales and that the allegations are being blown out of proportion. But with that kind of prison time hanging over her head, fans are left wondering, is Sha a victim of a flawed system or a master manipulator who got caught? Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart, a household name known for her lifestyle empire, hasn't seen the inside of a jail cell in nearly 2 decades. However, her past legal troubles still make for a dramatic story. Back in December 2001, Martha sold off a significant amount of stock in a company, only for its value to drop 16% the very next day. It later came to light that she had received a tip from her broker at Merrill Lynch, which authorities deemed insider trading. In June 2003, she was indicted by a grand jury on charges of securities fraud and obstructing justice. By March 2004, Martha was convicted of lying to federal investigators and obstructing their probe. She was sentenced to 5 months in federal prison, along with a $30,000 fine. On top of that, the SEC slapped her with a nearly $200,000 settlement in a civil suit. As part of her punishment, she was banned from holding any executive positions, such as CEO or CFO, for 5 years, which meant no involvement in the management or auditing of public companies. In 2017, Martha reflected on her time behind bars during a podcast interview. She described the experience as horrifying and emphasized that no one should have to go through that kind of indignity, except for murderers and a few other categories. Despite the grim chapter in her life, Martha's ability to bounce back and rebuild her career remains a testament to her resilience. It's one of the many shocking stories in Hollywood gossip that remind us that even the most polished public figures have skeletons in their closets. Heidi Flice. Heidi Flice, the name once synonymous with scandal and controversy, had a meteoric rise in the world of Hollywood's darkest secrets before crashing down in a whirlwind of criminal charges and public disgrace. Known as the Hollywood Madam, Flice ran one of the most infamous prostitution rings in the history of Hollywood, catering to the rich and famous. In the early 90s, she controlled an empire that allegedly serviced some of the biggest names in show business. Flice had made millions through her high-end escort service, which was a well-kept secret until it was exposed by an investigation that rocked the entertainment world. In 1993, after an extensive sting operation, Heidi was arrested, and her life as Hollywood's Queen of the Night came to a shocking halt. She was convicted in 1994 on felony charges of pandering and money laundering, as well as tax evasion. While many believed the charges were politically motivated due to her high-profile connections, the evidence against her was overwhelming, and she was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. However, she only served 3 years before being released on parole in 1999. Her criminal conviction didn't mark the end of her story. Heidi Flice's name continued to be a tabloid sensation, and she even attempted a variety of business ventures, including opening a laundromat for exotic animals, a project that sparked as much intrigue as it did confusion. Despite her attempt to reinvent herself, her life continued to spiral into a series of misfortunes, including brushes with the law, a conviction for drug possession in 2014, and allegations of illegal activities. In the years following her release from prison, Flice briefly attempted to enter the public spotlight again, even starring in her own reality show. But the lasting legacy of her time as the Hollywood Madam would forever overshadow her fleeting attempts at reinvention. Today, Heidi Flice's name remains one that draws attention, but not necessarily the kind she'd have hoped for. Some see her as a victim of circumstance, a product of a corrupt system, while others view her as a prime example of the dark side of fame and wealth. Whatever your take, one thing is certain. Heidi Flice's life continues to fascinate, a cautionary tale of the price one pays for living life on the edge. The silence breaks. Picture this: Linda in a bustling green room preparing for another show, when something catches her eye: the performance list. It wasn't the names of the Eagles or her own that set her off. It was his. Just seeing that name was enough. No words, no outburst, just a cold, silent exit. She stormed off, leaving everyone stunned, wondering what had just happened. For years, the mystery lingered. Fans, reporters, and even her closest peers were left in the dark. Linda never spoke of it, never gave any details. But now, at 78, she's finally shedding light on the truth, and it's more shocking than anyone could have imagined. What made her walk out so abruptly? Who was the man on that list that pushed her to the edge? The answers are more explosive than you think. Before we reveal even more shocking stories, where in the world are you watching from? Comment your country below, and stay tuned. The most shocking name on Linda Ronstadt's list is still coming. For years, Linda Ronstadt was the epitome of grace and poise. No public feuds, no shocking scandals, just a steady stream of perfectly composed interviews and a reputation for being one of the most respected figures in music. Her silence on personal matters was legendary, leaving fans and the media alike to wonder about the untold stories behind her career. But now, at 78, that silence is broken. In an unexpected moment of raw honesty, Linda opens up about the 7 musicians she never forgave. It's a revelation that shatters the carefully crafted image she's maintained for decades, pulling back the curtain on the tension and conflicts that no one ever expected from the Queen of Cool. They didn't just clash with her, they shook her confidence, questioned her talent, and revealed the ugliest truths hiding behind the glamour of rock and roll. And the list? It'll catch you off guard. These weren't petty feuds or forgotten arguments. These were deep betrayals, power struggles, and silent acts of payback that left scars across the music scene. The real shock? Some of the names she now resents were once the people she trusted most. Betrayals on stage and backstage. At the top of her list, a drummer turned frontman who didn't just rise in the industry, he used her rise to launch his own. And when he made it, he never looked back. The name might surprise you: Don Henley. Before the world knew the Eagles, Henley was just a face in Linda Ronstadt's band, a quiet figure in the background, holding the rhythm while she owned the spotlight. In the early 70s, Linda was the one filling concert halls, the voice everyone was talking about. Henley? He was gaining exposure simply by being near her. But once his new band caught fire, the dynamic flipped. The gratitude faded. The soft-spoken drummer transformed into a dominant force with a growing ego to match. As the Eagles soared, So did his self-importance, and the woman who once gave him his break was left behind in the shadows. The band that once opened for Linda now strutted down Sunset Boulevard, acting like they owned the place. Don Henley, especially, started to carry himself like the king of the canyon, brushing off the woman who had helped him rise to fame. The real turning point came in 1975, backstage at the Universal Amphitheater, when Henley made a remark that still stings. He mocked Linda's musical style, arrogantly suggesting she should stick to covering other people's songs and leave the songwriting to the real artists. The comment wasn't just a jab, it was a slap in the face to everything Linda had built with years of hard work, raw talent and passion. That was it for Linda. She didn't hesitate. In an instant, she pulled the plug, revoking Henley's tour credentials right then and there. No apologies, no second chances. Do you think Don Henley was out of line for saying Linda Ronstadt wasn't a real artist? Yes or no? Comment, yes, totally disrespectful, or no, he had a point, and tell us why you think so. Rumors began to swirl throughout the music world. Don Henley's unchecked arrogance had reached its peak. Roadies and industry insiders whispered about his tantrums, fueled by his egotistical decisions and the cruel insults he'd throw when no one was watching. But for Linda, the worst part wasn't just the betrayal, it was the total lack of respect. In private, she would later describe him as a climber who lost his soul in the pursuit of fame. But Henley wasn't the only one who crossed a line. Linda's next confrontation didn't stay behind closed doors. It unfolded in front of a live audience, complete with a drunk frontman, a hijacked microphone, and a moment so humiliating she could never erase it from her mind. It was 1968, the night Jim Morrison went too far. That summer's idealism was long gone, but the madness of rock and roll was in full swing. The Doors were on fire, tearing through stages with raw power, while Linda Ronstadt clawed her way forward in a world run by men. One evening, at an exclusive after-party near the Whiskey A Go-Go, where legends and outcasts mingled freely, no one saw the disaster coming. Jim Morrison, already several drinks deep and shirt casually undone, spotted Linda in the crowd. In a surge of bravado, he yanked her up onto the makeshift stage without a word. There was nothing spontaneous or charming about it, just reckless impulse. Then, standing before his stunned bandmates and onlookers, he reached in for a kiss. Linda pulled back on instinct, her dignity intact but her trust shattered. The chaos didn't end there. As Morrison lunged toward Linda, he lost his footing, stumbling into her mic stand and nearly sending the entire setup crashing to the ground. The room went silent, the crowd unsure whether to laugh or be horrified. That wild moment, thankfully never caught on camera, quickly became a backstage legend, whispered about in dark corners and shared over late-night radio for years. But Morrison never offered an apology. In fact, he made it worse. A few months later, during a radio interview, he mocked Linda, calling her sweet but spineless, belittling her as harmless and forgettable. Linda didn't fire back in public, she never did, but in the safety of her inner circle she had no hesitation. She described Morrison as a brilliant disaster, a man who destroyed everything he touched. To Linda, Jim Morrison wasn't just a reckless performer. He embodied the toxic masculinity that tried to control every inch of the music industry. While his chaotic behavior left emotional scars, the next betrayal cut deeper, and it wasn't delivered with drunken gestures or egotistical outbursts. This time it came when Linda thought she was standing with friends, supporting a cause she truly believed in, a movement she had risked everything to champion. Then one of her supposed allies turned on her. The protest turned personal. It was 1976. The culprit, Neil Young. At a benefit concert for farm workers that year, some of rock's biggest stars gathered to lend their voices for a cause they all supported. Among them were Linda Ronstadt and Neil Young, both known not just for their musical talents but their strong convictions. On the surface, they seemed like perfect allies, united for a shared mission. But as soon as the spotlight was on them, everything shifted. The tension backstage had been building for hours, and it finally erupted when Neil Young began dismissing Linda's artistic suggestions. He shut down her choices for the set, blocked her from performing certain songs, and even went so far as to criticize her sound, calling it too commercial. But the real sting came after the show when he reportedly told the press that Linda wasn't built for protest. The message was unmistakable. Linda wasn't authentic enough for the cause. She left the venue in tears. It wasn't just a personal insult. It was a betrayal from someone she had admired, someone she thought shared her values. To be dismissed as shallow by a fellow activist hurt more than any public critique ever could. That night changed everything for Linda. No matter how meaningful the cause, she never shared a stage with Neil Young again. Behind closed doors, she referred to him as loud in message, cruel in execution. To her, his activism rang hollow when mixed with that kind of arrogance. But if that moment left her shaken, the next betrayal would wound her on a deeper level, artistically. This time, the cruelty wasn't backstage or in the press. It came in the middle of a studio session in front of a full room of musicians, with just one cold, cutting remark. This time it was Frank Zapper. Their collaboration in 1974 was supposed to be electric. Frank Zapper, avant-garde, unpredictable, and known for his experimental rock genius, and Linda Ronstadt, the unstoppable, genre-defying vocalist on the rise. Together they seemed poised to push musical boundaries, but in reality, the partnership crumbled within hours. It started with genuine excitement. Linda was eager to record one of Zapper's tracks, but as soon as they entered the studio, the mood soured. Zapper dismissed her creative suggestions with a mocking smirk, criticizing her sound as too sanitized. He accused her of watering down his raw art into something commercial, fit for car commercials. The tension hit its peak during a live rehearsal when Zapper suddenly stopped the band. The room fell silent. In front of everyone he sneered, "This is what happens when you hand real music to a pop singer." The silence was deafening. Linda didn't fight back. She didn't shout. Instead, she quietly packed up her things, humiliated and hurt, and walked out. She never returned to Zapper's studio, and the collaboration ended there. Publicly, she said nothing about it, but those who were close to her recall her words clearly. She respected Zapper's brilliance, but described him as brutal, a man she could never trust again. Creative clashes with difficult artists were one thing, but the next betrayal went much deeper. This time, the person who turned on Linda wasn't an eccentric genius or a reckless frontman. It was someone she once considered family, a fellow trailblazer who had helped shape the very same counterculture they both believed in. The betrayal? It came from David Crosby, a member of the Laurel Canyon elite. In the golden days of Laurel Canyon, Linda and Crosby had been close. Their musical chemistry was undeniable, and they shared not just the stage, but a deep bond. Crosby's harmonies and Linda's vocals were part of a revolution in music. But by 1978, that harmony had fractured. During a vocal session for a collaborative track, Linda requested a simple key change to better suit her voice. Crosby, dismissing her request with a sharp, "You should learn to adapt," refused. What seemed like a minor disagreement quickly escalated. Harsh words were exchanged and their arguments spilled into the press, becoming one of the most talked about clashes in Laurel Canyon history. But the betrayal didn't end there. In a scathing public move, Crosby went to Rolling Stone and called Linda manufactured, implying that she was more product than genuine talent. For Linda, who had built her entire career on raw ability and authentic artistry, the words cut deep. Yet, true to her nature, she didn't respond in interviews or make any public statements. Her silence, however, was anything but passive. Behind the scenes, she made a deliberate, silent stand. She banned Crosby's name from being spoken around her band and inner circle. Studio musicians were told never to mention him. His music was swiftly removed from her tour playlists. It was as if he no longer existed in her world. To Linda, Crosby had not only betrayed a friendship, but had also turned his back on the very ideals that had once united them in the heart of Laurel Canyon. Privately, Linda referred to Crosby as a cautionary tale. He was proof that even the most brilliant musicians could be consumed by ego, drugs, and fame. His actions left a lasting scar on her, and yet, this wouldn't be the most crushing betrayal she'd endure. The next incident would leave her stunned, the sting of it still evident in the way she spoke of it years later. Enter Elvis Costello. In 1979, Linda was at the peak of her career, fresh off a string of hit albums, and a headliner at a major festival in Cleveland. The excitement was palpable, But amidst the energy, Costello, a rising punk icon, decided to make a name for himself with a public insult that would shock everyone. Brash and unfiltered, Costello was known for his punk rock edge and intellectual rebellion, and that night he aimed his sharp tongue squarely at Linda. In front of a group of reporters, he sneered and dismissed her performance as background music for brunch. It wasn't just a rude comment. It was a calculated act of public humiliation. The words stung, not just because of their cruelty, but because of the timing. Costello, a new face in the music scene, had gone out of his way to belittle a woman who had spent years carving out her place in the industry. Linda never responded publicly to the insult, but behind closed doors, her inner circle knew that the wound ran deep. It wasn't just a matter of taste. It was a personal attack that challenged her very essence as an artist. The insult from Elvis Costello spread like wildfire through the music scene, and when Linda finally had the chance to confront him backstage, she had hoped for some clarity, perhaps even an apology. What she received, however, was far from what she expected. Costello, reportedly drunk and overflowing with arrogance, looked her dead in the eye and threw another cold, cutting remark before walking away, without so much as a hint of remorse. Linda never looked back after that. To her, Costello wasn't just a rude young artist. He symbolized a new breed of musician. Clever, yes, but heartless. Critical without a hint of compassion, rebellious but only for the sake of ego. In his defiance, she saw no soul, only a relentless, bitter desire to tear down rather than build up. His cruelty made her question whether the punk ethos he championed had any real purpose, or if it was just about tearing down everything in its path. The final heartbreak, a lost collaboration with Paul Simon. But even that pain, as sharp as it was, paled in comparison to the final heartbreak on Linda's list. The last betrayal wasn't from a wild rocker or an abrasive newcomer. It came from someone who should have been her musical kindred spirit. Someone whose voice had the power to complement hers perfectly. Someone who, on paper, seemed destined to create magic with her. This was a person whose collaboration had all the potential to be iconic, but behind the scenes things were far from harmonious. What should have been an exhilarating partnership instead devolved into a silent, simmering war, the name that completes this list of heartbreaks, Paul Simon. The contrast between their voices should have been effortless, two forces of nature colliding in a beautiful blend of harmony. Instead, Linda found herself at odds with Simon's controlling nature. Their musical visions clashed in the studio, and what should have been a creative exchange became an ongoing battle for dominance. Simon's cold dismissal of her artistry, his reluctance to collaborate on equal footing, left Linda questioning everything she thought she knew about trust in music. In 1982, it was the kind of collaboration everyone dreamed of. Paul Simon, one of the most respected songwriters of his generation, and Linda Ronstadt, a powerhouse known for her versatile and unmatched vocal range. Fans and industry insiders couldn't contain their excitement when Linda agreed to duet with him for his upcoming album. It sounded like a dream partnership, but what should have been magic quickly soured into a slow-burning nightmare. From the moment they hit the studio, things felt wrong. Simon, who was known for his perfectionism, began nitpicking Linda's every move. She recalls him interrupting takes to correct phrasing that didn't need fixing. He rewrote lyrics without consulting her and offered vocal advice that seemed more like condescension than collaboration. Linda, according to those close to her, described the experience as feeling like she was being scolded by a strict principal. Every note was scrutinized, every suggestion felt dismissive. The chemistry that should have been there was stifled by ego, and the creative spark fizzled out quickly. The song they worked on was ultimately shelved, unfinished, and never heard by the public. But for Linda, the damage went beyond one unrecorded track. It was the way she felt, belittled, treated as though her vast legacy and powerful voice meant little compared to Simon's control. After that, Linda made an unspoken promise to herself. Never again would she step into a studio with Paul Simon. And with that final betrayal, Linda Ronstadt's silence on the darker side of her career finally began to unravel. 7 musicians, 7 scars, each hidden for decades behind the elegance of her public persona until now. Because behind every harmony she sings, there's a story that few have ever heard, until someone dares to speak it. Why did she stay silent for so long? Linda Ronstadt's final confession, the real reason she stayed single for life. Linda Ronstadt is a legendary American singer whose remarkable career has spanned over 4 decades, crossing genres from rock, country and pop to opera and traditional Mexican music. She rose to fame in the 1970s with hits like You're No Good, Blue Bayou and When Will I Be Loved, becoming one of the most versatile and best-selling female artists of her time. With 11 Grammy Awards, countless platinum albums and a powerful voice that defined an era, Ronstadt broke barriers not just in music, but also as a Latina artist in a male-dominated industry. Despite retiring from singing due to Parkinson's disease, her legacy continues to inspire generations of artists around the world. At 78, Linda Ronstadt still commands the spotlight. Her golden voice, armful of Grammys, and ageless elegance all refuse to fade. Yet even after dating some of the most sought-after partners in show business, she never once walked down the aisle. Why? In a rare moment of candor, Ronstadt finally unveils the fiercely personal promise that kept her single for life. A revelation packed with conviction that has left devoted fans reeling and stirred a fresh wave of Hollywood gossip. Born on July 15, 1946, in sun-soaked Tucson, Linda Ronstadt arrived with music already woven into her DNA. Guided by a guitar-loving father and the vivid folk rhythms of her Mexican-American roots, she grew up straddling 2 cultures, each chord and harmony shaping the powerhouse who would later captivate the world and become a staple of celebrity interviews. The cross-cultural soundtrack of Ronstadt's childhood set the stage for everything that followed. In high school, she linked up with fellow folk dreamer Bob Kimmel, whose restless ambition pointed straight toward Los Angeles. One semester into the University of Arizona, her own heartbeat started keeping time with him. She packed up, headed west, and alongside Kimmel and guitarist Kenny Edwards, built the Stone Ponies from scratch. Their rise came fast. In 1967, Different Drums soared up the charts, its jangly defiance wrapped around Ronstadt's unmistakable voice. Overnight, the world heard not just a promising singer, but the arrival of a new force. She didn't merely join the boys' club of rock, she knocked down its front door, headlining arenas and carving her name into a male-dominated genre. Crowds crowned her the Queen of Rock, the First Lady of the Stage, titles earned by sheer resolve and show-stopping talent. Long before Hollywood scandals could dim anyone's spotlight, Linda Ronstadt had already rewritten the rules, proving that a woman's place in rock was wherever she decided to stand. Industry gatekeepers tried to squeeze Ronstadt into a neat little box, but she refused to fit, answering every slight with twice the effort and an arena-shaking performance. Yet the thunder of applause couldn't muffle the hush that followed each show. In rare candor, she speaks of hotel rooms that felt colder than any stage light, proof that success can be a lonely traveling companion. Sound off below on a scale from 1 total empowerment to 9, she missed out big time. How do you feel about Linda Ronstadt staying single for life? Comment just the number 1, 2, 3, up to 9, and let the debate begin. Love stories came and went like chart-topping singles. Songwriter J.D. Souther offered harmonies. California's Governor Jerry Brown traded policy briefings for backstage passes. Their shared magazine covers turned her private moments into public fodder, but vows were never part of the arrangement. Ronstadt chose autonomy over aisle walks, stepping onto every gala carpet with the unflinching poise of a woman perfectly content in her own headline, an unexpected flourish in the evolving tale of red carpet fashion. Romance never stayed simple for Linda Ronstadt. In the 80s, she startled fans by dating a young stand-up named Jim Carrey, then spent years engaged to Star Wars mastermind George Lucas. Marriage still eluded her. Instead, Ronstadt chose motherhood on her own terms, adopting Mary Clementine and later Carlos, proof that her heart favored family over formal vows. Reflecting on love, she once signed, "He's really nice, but he's not musically inspired." The real challenge, she explained, came when lightning struck. And then you meet someone who's so musically inspired that it takes your breath away. But he's such a jerk, such a maniac that you can't get along with him. And then there's the problem of finding someone who can put up with you. Those words reveal a lifelong quest for a partner who could match her creative pulse without dimming her spirit. Disenchanted with Los Angeles, its stale air, status games, and empty glitz, Ronstadt decamped to San Francisco, then finally returned to Tucson to raise her children amid familiar desert skies. That decision silenced the usual Hollywood gossip, but amplified the one truth that mattered. Linda Ronstadt would always write the melody of her life her own way. Ronstadt eventually split her time between fog-kissed San Francisco and sun-baked Tucson, fine-tuning a life tempo that suited her better than any tour schedule. Yet in the hush between cities, a single note changed everything. In 2013, doctors diagnosed her with Parkinson's disease, a cruel turn that stole the very instrument that made her a legend. Suddenly, the voice that once soared across arenas struggled with the simplest phrase. For any performer, it would be devastating. For Linda Ronstadt, whose every breath had been a song, it was seismic. Still, she refused to let the silence define her. With the same candor that once captivated celebrity interviews, she spoke publicly about the tremors and stiffness, shining a spotlight on a condition too often hidden in the wings. When asked if she missed singing each day, she quietly confirmed the ache, and then shifted focus to advocacy, determination glinting in her eyes. Even without a stage, Ronstadt found new ways to resonate, proving that while illness may hush a voice, it cannot mute a spirit tuned to perseverance. These days the stage is silent, yet melodies still race through Linda Ronstadt's mind. "I can sing in my brain," she tells reporters. In that private concert hall, she either selects a favorite tune or endures whatever her brain blares. Sometimes the hokiest holiday jingles on loop. Life on tour once felt like rereading the same battered chapter. Bus, hotel, soundcheck, spotlight, repeat. Along the way, magazine covers paired her with governors, comedians, and chart-topping songwriters. Still, after the curtain fell, she preferred an empty ring finger. Whispers swirled about why such a luminous star remained single, even hinting it must be personal orientation. In candid celebrity interviews, Ronstadt dismissed the rumors with a shrug. She had always hoped to meet a partner who matched her passion and stayed kind. She simply never found the perfect duet. So she chose independence over compromise, letting the world speculate while she kept writing her own score. For Linda Ronstadt, true chemistry went far beyond fame or fortune. It had to make her heart sing. Loyalty, warmth, and genuine care topped her checklist, but she also confessed that quick wit was irresistible. Anyone who could spark a laugh instantly rose to the front of the line. Music mattered too. She longed for a partner who not only appreciated melody, but understood it at a soul-deep level. "Gentlemen, you prefer? Oh, I don't know. Smart and honest, I suppose." That off-the-cuff remark captured her standards in a single breath. Yet even the fellow musicians she dated never quite measured up to a lifelong duet. In a candid Washington Post conversation, she admitted she had no talent for marriage at all. Insisting compromise simply wasn't her style. Pressed on why countless high-profile romances never ended at the altar, Ronstadt shrugged. "I didn't need to get married. No aisle, no vows, no regrets." Back in 1974, she told Crawdaddy magazine exactly why relationships in show business rarely last. Relationships are almost impossible. First of all, new opportunities are flashing before your eyes every 3 seconds. And secondly, you're not around him long enough, and also the people you come into contact with are other musicians, and they're all really competitive. Her words laid bare the relentless carousel of attention that shadows every star. In the swirl of Hollywood scandals, stage lights, and competitive egos, Linda Ronstadt discovered that staying single gave her the freedom she prized most, autonomy to conduct her life in perfect pitch, without ever missing a beat. Ronstadt long ago decided that romances in show business fade faster than a chart-topping single. She points to the endless search for the perfect mix of kindness, creativity, and compatibility, confessing, "You meet one guy, he's really nice, but he's not musically inspired, and then you meet someone else who's so musically inspired that it just takes your breath away, but he's such a jerk, such a maniac that you can't get along with him." As she wryly adds, "And then there's the problem of finding someone who can put up with you." That frank wisdom, often delivered in her most revealing celebrity interviews, captures the tug-of-war she's fought for decades, the need to protect her freedom versus the wish to share life with an equal. Through dizzying fame, grueling tours, and a relentless battle with Parkinson's disease, Ronstadt refused to compromise her principles. The result? A legacy gilded with Grammys, capped by the 2013 National Medal of Arts, and burnished by an unbreakable spirit that still outshines every spotlight. Behind every mugshot lies a shattered illusion of fame. These female celebrities, once praised, idolized, and adored, now serve as cautionary figures in the ever-darkening world of Hollywood scandals. From fraud to fatal crashes, their stories remind us that no amount of stardom can shield you from justice. Which case shook you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget, what's glamorous today might be tomorrow's headline nightmare. Involved in a physical altercation with a woman.